What are some of the figures you wish Kenner made but never did? Today, we go into the history of that. Plus, we close a chapter in my journey. You don't want to miss this episode. Welcome back to the journey, and if you're new, we're collecting the entire Star Wars Kenner line made from 1977 to 1985, and yes, we started from scratch. So if you want to go back and binge watch those episodes, please do. So do me a favor again, get out that pen and paper and make a list of the figures that you wish Kenner made back in the 70s and 80s, because I want to see if your list matches mine again. And after that, I'm gonna close a pretty significant chapter in my run. I just got a little sad saying that, but that chapter is part of this conversation. So let's get right into it, starting with that list. And starting with the figure that I mentioned a few episodes ago, the Y-Wing pilot. Now, why Kenner never made a Y-Wing pilot is beyond me. It was a great space vehicle, so let's do some speculation. And the same thinking I'm about to say can apply to most of these figures that I'm gonna mention. One thought would be a matter of timing. With the A-Wing and B-Wing vehicle releases somewhat coinciding with those of the matching pilots, that makes more sense. The Y-Wing's 1983 release matching up with the release of Rebel characters like Akbar and Yim Yub, and their presence on the packaging perhaps points to one of those characters serving as the pilot role. However, the Scout Walker eventually got its matching figure, so maybe it could have depended on the sales success of the vehicle. Another factor could be the number of Imperial and Rebel characters produced from the Return of the Jedi and the Power of the Force, and Kenner trying to maintain some sort of balance. With Akbar, Maydeen, Nub, Rebel Commando, Pruneface, B-Wing pilot, A-Wing pilot, countering the Empire figures with the Emperor, Royal Guard, Biker Scout, AT-ST driver, Imperial dignitary, and Imperial gunner, another Rebel pilot may have been one too many in terms of trying to keep an even and diverse lineup. I guess we'll never know. The next is Mon Mothma. She was a huge part of the Return of the Jedi in the briefing meeting and was one of the main leaders of the rebellion. So why no Mothma? I searched high and low for an explanation, but could not find one. Was it because Kenner and the marketing department thought that boys wouldn't want a female action figure because they thought it might be considered a doll? That's just speculation, but there are marketing research reports in Kenner's archives, and I would love to see the report on why no Mon Mothma. Tarkin. I think this one always comes up on lists like this on why there was no Tarkin. Well, there is proof that Kenner was considering making a Tarkin figure only by this presentation piece with a reference photo of Peter Cushing's face, but no prototype, 3D sculpt, or a figure are ever known to have existed. So we almost, maybe, perhaps, kinda, would have got a Tarkin figure? Wedge Antilles. Just imagine if Kenner made a Wedge Antilles figure. Then you could have had you and your friend fight over who got to be Luke and who got to be Wedge as you recreated your own trench run. But maybe Kenner thought that making a Wedge Antilles in an X-Wing suit would get passed by on the toy aisles when you could get the main hero, Luke, in the same X-Wing outfit for the same price. Maybe if they added Wedge as a mail-away offer? Han Solo in a Stormtrooper disguise. Now, they made a Luke with a Stormtrooper disguise, but no Han. You had to get another Stormtrooper when you were a kid and pretend it was Han Solo. There are no explanations of why Han was never made, and there is no mention of a prototype anywhere out there. So maybe they would have made one if the original Power of the Force line was going to continue, but there are no records showing a prototype. Kellogg's cereal did have a promotional Stormtrooper Han, but it was the buff Power of the Force 2 sculpt. Vader with removable helmet. So there is said to be 89 different versions of Darth Vader that have been released as an action figure, but we only got one from Kenner. Now, a Vader with a removable helmet did get released in 1998, but just imagine if we would have gotten this figure as a mail-away offer instead of this Anakin. Yavin Luke. There is no evidence that Kenner was ever in talks to make this figure come true, but I can see why. For diorama building, this figure would have been great, but for playability, there's not much there. He would have just stood there and received a medal. But we did get this figure eventually in the Power of the Force 2 line. Sand Trooper. Now, I've seen some pretty great mods for this figure, and Kenner did release a pack of accessories that included a backpack for Luke to carry Yoda in, so even if Kenner released that inside this accessory pack, that would have been pretty cool. Next, any Imperial astromech droids. We only got to have R2 and R5, but the Empire had R2-Q5, R2-Q2, and R4-M9, just to name a few. These would have been cool not to only collect, but have in your Death Star playset. And these next two, I know they're not figures, so maybe we can put these on a special mentions list. But it would have been cool to see a vintage Bantha and a vintage TIE Bomber come out from Kenner. Now, we got a Dewback and a Tauntaun as creatures that figures could ride, but Kenner never got to produce a Bantha. And there is known evidence of Kenner having concept art of this figure, but it was shut down after Kenner ended the Power of the Force line in 1985. And the TIE Bomber was made as a die-cast version, but never as a toy where a 3.75-inch figure could occupy the cockpit. We did get the regular TIE Advanced, and the TIE Interceptor, so maybe Kenner thought that to add the TIE Bomber would have been TIE overkill? Maybe, but it's still a cool ship that fans would have loved to get into their collections. And now we come to a character and set of figures that we all wish we would have had. Our first, the awards ceremony Leia. Now, her outfit in the beginning of Star Wars and the ceremony are quite similar, so I can see why they didn't make this exact figure. But there's also the Endor Leia that we never got. We did get Endor Leia in her battle gear, but again, did Kenner ever think that boys wouldn't find a long-haired Leia in a brown gown not desirable? Well, those same boys from the 80s are wishing they had that now. Now, I think this next figure is the #1 figure that everybody wish Kenner made. And the one figure that I think everybody wishes that Kenner made, it's the Bikini Leia from Jabba's palace. Some people call her Bikini Leia. Some people call her Slave Leia. Some people call her Metal Bikini Leia. But whatever you want to call it, it never got made in the original Kenner line. Now you have to remember, this was in the middle of the conservative 80s, and although the Reagan administration did do a lot to deregulate the way that toys and children's TV shows were marketed to kids, Lucasfilm did a lot to avoid controversy, and we didn't get a Bikini Leia until the Power of the Force 2 line. But in the early 80s, with He-Man coming out with Teela and other figures that were molded with bikini type outfits that boys did buy, I think they missed out on a figure that could have sold really well. So let me know in the comments which figures, vehicles, or playsets that you wish Kenner would have made back in the original run. But for now, we close a small chapter in my collecting journey, and it has to do with the character that we just talked about. Now, I have a Leia from 1977. I have the Bespin Leia, the Boushh Leia, and my very special Endor Leia that my mom bought me. But we are missing the Hoth Leia for our display case. And if you've been following my journey, you know that I did buy a Hoth Leia in her red hair variant, and we sent that off for grading to CAS, which we're still waiting for. So we have that marked off on our grading run. But as for our display version, we did buy a Hoth Leia for our display early in our run, and back then, I never researched the figures. Not only did I buy the wrong blaster, the black blaster that belongs to the 1987 Leia, but it was a reproduction weapon. Now, I'm not against reproduction weapons or accessories, and for some people, that's the way that they complete their collections without having to spend the astronomical prices that sellers are charging right now. But as for me and my collection, I only want to collect accessories that came in card or in box with that particular figure. And I really believe in collect the way that you want. And for me, it just brings me the most joy knowing that I have the authentic accessories. And yes, when I do get reproduction items, I do have to destroy them. But the only reason why I do this is so they don't accidentally end up in my collection again, because if I ever want to trade or sell those items, I don't want to accidentally sell that to another collector. But for every reproduction item that I do destroy, I do buy an item from Toys to Tots and donate that, just so that way I feel like there's a balance. So back to the figure that I bought from eBay a while back, the seller that we bought the item from did state in the description that it was reproduction, but like I said, it was early in my collecting journey and I didn't catch that and I bought it way too quickly. So we went on the hunt for a new replacement blaster. And the way that we found it was on Facebook, where one of the administrators of a page posts a Wanted Wednesday. So members can post in the comments of what they're looking for, and usually the list of items are pretty hard to find, such as accessories or vehicle parts. So I posted that I wanted a Hoth Leia blue blaster, and somebody said that they would sell me one for the ridiculous price of $15.
All right, this has been a very long time coming. It's all right? It's all right. Let's gently, okay, there's nothing in there. Check. Ah, beautiful. We've been waiting for this guy for a long, long time. This is the Hoth Leia's blaster. There it is right there, looking very good. Leia's blaster. See if you can see it right there. Looks very good to me. So let's pair it with our Hoth Leia. The Hoth Leia with her, finally, original blaster. Now this is the Leia that we got from eBay, so you can tell that this one is not in pristine condition. We did send our mint version to get graded. So finally, we can put this Hoth Leia inside the case. All right, so one more thing checked off. That's cool.
And yes, it is not repro. So that marks the end of getting Leias for our display case. And we still have the grading versions to buy for all of these, except for our Hoth Leia. But here are all my display Leias looking great and all together. And so we close that chapter of this run. And we finally have our display Leia complete and ready to place in our collector displays case. And we can also cross off this Leia from our list. And the grand total that we have spent on this figure is $37.71, which is not a bad price at all. And even though there is hair, eyebrow, and paint rub on this figure throughout, the figure does mean a lot to me because of the journey that we had to go on to finally complete this figure. And so, if you found this video interesting, please hit that like button. It does help the channel. And if you want to follow the journey, please hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you can know when episodes go live. I have new episodes every Wednesday and Saturday. And as always, my friends, thank you, and I'll see you next time. If you're new to the channel, check out the welcome video, or just check out the next episode. And please subscribe if you want to follow the journey. And remember, there is no shame in being a Padawan.